Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, people of all neurodiversities, people of all color, welcome to Speaking of the Spectrum. This is an autism podcast for everyone. And by that, what I mean is, if you're an autistic individual, if you're a parent of somebody that's autistic, such as myself and my co-host and my guest, who we'll introduce in a second, or if you're not even related to somebody who's autism and just looking for your next conversational gem to pal, just having a chat, I guarantee you'll find something valuable out of this episode specifically. Who am I? I'm Shahrukh Sultan, the man with the plan from Pakistan, project manager by day, Autism Society Greater Hudson Region Vice President on some days, and every day and most hours of the night, I'm also an autism dad. If you think that's impressive, check out my co-host. He is a human Kaizen expert. He's a finance guru. He's a child prodigy. He went to college when he was just 14. Black belt owner. No need to brag, Joe. Not done yet. Swiss Army knife, human Swiss Army knife. He has martial arts black belt holder. He runs ultra marathons. Aside from that, he's just your average Joe Templin.
Shahrukh, it's great to be back with you today, and I'm really looking forward to our guest today, even though he did go to Union College as opposed to our guest. So there will be a little bit of friendly rivalry.
Meanwhile, the international student from SUNY Albany is here like this. Leave me out of this. So yeah, if you thought those credentials are impressive, our guest today, Angelo, Assemblyman Angelo Santabarbara. Thank you so much. We are so excited and so honored to have you today. We've been trying to put this together for a while, so thanks for giving us the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast. We have talked about this for a long time, and I'm excited to be here. I love the studio, by the way. The colors are bright and energetic. And if it helps at all, I did end up getting my degree from SUNY Albany. Although I did take classes because civil engineering classes. I had to take them at Union. So I don't know if that helps with the rivalry or not, but maybe it'll tone down the tension.
It helps because now I'm on this side of the argument. I'm with the SUNY Albany.
We're highly accepting of everybody, even Red Sox fans here.
So every time I've met you, whether it was at one of our autism galas, it was at a 5K that we host, or recently where I ran into you was you set up this really awesome event, which was Sensory Friendly Day at the VI Aquarium. I ran into you there, and unfortunately my son didn't stay there more than 5 seconds as you saw me struggling trying to get him.
It happens.
But I always see you at these events, and first of all, thank you for setting them up and supporting that. But the first thing that always strikes me is you always have Michael with you, your son. And for me, as a dad, I'm really still trying to get my son, as you saw that day, he didn't stay with me, right? But I really, really admire that about you, is that you bring Michael with you, and he seems to be having a good time, and you're obviously giving it priority. So thank you for that, and that's really inspiring. But more importantly, like you said, you went to SUNY for engineering, and your origin story from that to successful politician is Autism Super Dad. I'm going to hear about how that happened.
Well, just going back, I appreciate you stopping by the event. That's an annual event we do via Aquarium, a sensory friendly event. And it's interesting because sensory friendly in itself, when I first started, going back even further to when my son was diagnosed with autism, that was almost a word nobody even heard about. And now it seems more common. People are catching on to what it is and why it's important to people. In regards to my son, I've been a civil engineer. I served in the Army Reserve for 8 years. Right out of high school, I went off to basic training. I went on to be a civil engineer. As I said, now I'm a member of the New York State Assembly. But my most important job, and I tell people, and I got 2 kids. I got my daughter Mariana, who's a senior at college, and I got my son Michael, who just graduated at Shelmont, walked across the stage at the age of 22.
Wow, congratulations.
And made me so proud. They both make me proud, and I treat them exactly alike, because my number one job is being a dad.
Yep.
That's my most important job, and those 2 are the most important things in my life.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Love to hear.
So to answer your question, going back, people do ask, how is this possible? You're a civil engineer, and you end up in this chaotic arena that is called politics, and it is chaotic. It's going from a structured math and science things are very structured. And I went to school for when I came back from basic training, when I was serving in the reserves, I did that because I wanted to go to school to be an engineer, and I was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, for basic training. I served down there. They were all engineers there. That's an engineering place, but that was my passion at the time. And my wife and I got together, and I said, look, I want to get this degree. This is something I want to do. And we spent every last dollar trying to get my degree so that I can become a PE, what's known as a PE, a professional engineer. And it's a very lengthy process. And at the time, we were just starting out. We had our family. We're trying to find a house. Then when my son Michael was born, it really changed my life. And I call him my angel because he is my angel. But he really changed my life. And when we realized he wasn't learning like other kids, we didn't know what to do. It was a very uncertain time for us. It was a challenging time for us. We were looking for help and couldn't find it. The last thing you want to do, and I tell parents, is do not go Googling things, because you'll find every piece of misinformation you can possibly find out there, and most of it is either not true or it sends you in the wrong direction.
At its best, it's overwhelming.
Exactly. So what we did until we found the Autism Society. And this is why I have such an attachment to you guys. I served on the board for many years.
Right.
Until I found the Autism Society, we really couldn't find out what to do next. But we realized that Michael was going to have this challenge in his life. And my wife and I talked about this, and my passion at that point had changed. Yeah. And although we had invested so much time and energy in a civil engineering degree, which is not easy to come by. Yeah. For myself, look, we had... we were struggling just to pay bills, pay for school. That's part of the reason I didn't graduate at Union, because it was just unaffordable for me at the time. So I took the classes I needed, and I went to a SUNY school, which SUNY school, still affordable today, was affordable back then. That's what got me through it. I'm a proud SUNY graduate. I put this degree together. I qualified for the professional engineering exam. But I tell people this all the time. Sometimes you don't know what's going to change your life.
Yeah.
So many things can affect you, and so many things can shape who you are. Yeah. My parents are both immigrants. They came to this country as a new country for them. I was the first one born here. I didn't speak English till I was in first grade. But it was the people in my life that realized, my teachers, my friends, my neighbors realized something was wrong, and they really helped me get through. I didn't even think I was going to graduate high school, let alone go on to do anything else. But the truth is, with the right supports and services, and that's what we're talking about here when we talk about kids with autism, kids with disabilities, the right supports and services, we can make a difference. We can put people on the path to success. Yeah. So at that point in my life, I had to follow my passion. It was burning inside of me. I wanted to advocate for these kids, for kids like Michael, for adults, for people with disabilities that didn't have the voice they needed at the state capitol. So I started serving on the board for the Autism Society, Family and Child Services Schenectady, a number of other little organizations and boards that were local, but it led me to where I am today. And my son, people ask me, my son just graduated, what are some of the things you taught him? What are some of the things you did along the way? The truth is, he teaches me much more than I can ever teach him. Yeah. And he put me in a direction right where I'm supposed to be. I'm working with key advocates. I'm helping more people. I think this is where I'm supposed to be. I didn't realize it, but my son had such an impact in my life, and he truly is my angel on good days and bad days. He's pretty nonverbal. He doesn't speak, but there's good days and bad days, and on the bad days, on the days that things maybe are not going so right, he doesn't have to really talk. We communicate. Yeah. And he says, Dad, I can see it. Dad, keep fighting for us. Don't give up. This is important. Yeah. You need to do this for us. Go. Keep going. And he inspires me. He really does.
Yeah. And I mean, respect and kudos to you for chasing that passion, because not many people would do that, right? Give up your engineering potential for this, right? Like I think I said this last season and I kind of felt like it's not at the same scale as your journey, but similar, right? Where how I became associated with the Autism Society was, it was just a feeling that once you latch into a cause, right, that the universe really needs, that feels that, like, I call it God, people call it the universe, what have you, right? Cthulhu months, whoever you believe in, right? Is like when you latch onto that cause, the organic gates will start to open organically, right? And then the next opportunity will come to the next one. Like how I went from, or like, how I met you, Joe, how I met, Autism Society, how this podcast came to be. All those things started to happen just organically, like without thinking, right? Like, and that's very much like in tune with your journey that you shared, and thank you so much for that. But one of the things that really caught my eye was when I was looking at your Autism Action New York 5-step plan. I got a quick glance of it on your website. I looked through it. I was like, yeah, all of this makes sense, but somebody had to put it together and frame it that way, right? So do you mind giving us a quick overview of what that is?
Yes, absolutely. That bill was one of the first bills I passed. That was something I had been working on for a long time, something I had been thinking about before I even got to the New York State Assembly. But a plan that focuses on what we're talking about here, right? What are the right supports and services? And not, often people say kids with autism, but it's really a lifespan that we're looking at. Yep. There's different needs along the way. My son's at that age now where he's 22, and now we're at the part where, he's looking for a place where he could find a home, whether it's at Liberty ARC or whether it's a group home or whatever the setting's going to be. That's the next phase now. So this plan is meant to address all those pieces. So if you look at the 5 pieces, there's an education portion, which is important. Early diagnosis is a bill that we passed. We passed a bill that requires that testing, that requires that early diagnosis, because that's when we can get the kids to help much, much sooner. My son was 3 years old, and we didn't really get an official diagnosis. He was much older than that. But you miss out. You miss out on things that can really have an impact, that can make a difference. And we don't want to see people missing out on that. If there's an opportunity to access those services, get an IEP, get those things in place. We didn't know what an IEP was. And I don't know if your listeners, might be asking right now.
I'm pretty sure a lot of them don't.
What is it? But it's an important piece of the puzzle, right? It's an important piece of what you need to put in place to make sure they get those supports and services. So that education component is really important. There's a piece in there for healthcare. There's a piece in there for housing. There's a piece in there for healthcare, housing. There's a piece in there for communication. So the communication piece, each piece has had, this was the bill that put a lot in place of what followed. So I've had a lot of bills on this issue, on disabilities. I've served on the mental health committee, a number of other committees. But the communication piece was one of those pieces that we needed to improve on. The disability ID card, you might have saw on my website as well. Yeah. I think we hit I don't know Nicole's off to the side here. I think it was 10,000 cards. I don't know how many thousand cards that we've hit as issuing these cards, these disability ID cards that have been very useful for people.
What does that card get you?
The card will spell out on the back. It'll identify who you are, but also spell out what you may have trouble communicating, what the issues may be. And I envision, maybe a traffic stop, maybe going through TSA. Right. I use that card all the time going through a TSA. I hand it right with my son's passport. My son, and I say, my son's disabled. He's traveling with me. Right. I am his guardian. He's not going to be able to answer questions. And that New York State disability ID card just bridges that gap.
Is that similar to the sunflower thing that I've seen online?
It's similar. It's similar, but it's a more official state issued.
Gotcha.
But it's the same type of idea. Okay. That you have an idea that some of the disabilities we're talking about are invisible, right?
Yeah.
You may not know. So and same thing with having law enforcement, firefighters, first responders understand there may be people in the house that you need to approach in a certain way, because you may run towards them and they may run towards the danger, may not run towards you.
Yep.
So these are things that we need to think about. So one of the bills as part of that communication also is, and this was a big deal too, getting autism training for first responders. That was a huge bill that we were able to get passed that requires this training now once a year for people to understand, what are the issues when dealing with someone with a disability, when dealing with things like autism, what are the issues? And this is something that, it makes everybody, it's a win-win for everybody. They have the understanding now, they have the knowledge, so they know how to understand different people. They have that knowledge. So these bills are meant to improve that communication piece. I could go on. I could talk about every single bill.
We need to have a part 2 to this.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we got left.
We'll make the time for it. Don't worry about it. But what I was thinking about was again, selfishly was. We recently drove to Canada because we're not very brave when it comes to flying or going outside. We made one international trip and that was it for a few years. But even we were so anxious crossing the border into Canada, we're well, my son's very restless in the car.
Yeah.
Right. And and there's usually a 30-minute wait for immigration. Oh God, what if he tries to get out of the car while the immigration officer's interviewing him? Or is there a speed pass we can get in or something? And that's just one of the first steps we could look into.
Exactly. And that card. I was just at the Schenectady Light Opera Company and I usually present a citation at the opening day of their show, and I did that. But afterwards, as they were going onto the stage, there was a woman waiting for me there, and she wanted to talk to me. And this happens, you know. And I said, "Oh," and she wanted to have a conversation with me. What she brought up was, "I wanted to thank you for that disability ID card. My son, I think her son drives, but he has problems communicating, and that card," she said, "has been a lifesaver. To be able to hand that with a license, to identify." You know, we always want to be around our kids. We always, but sometimes we can't, and especially if they're on the path to independence. And so, someone's driving, has a problem communicating, may not look people in the face. You know, that is spelled out on that card. So at least someone, now you have communicated. Hey, there is an issue. We're not, you know, not trying to cause a problem, not trying to be, you know, it's just that there's sensory issues. There's a number of issues that, and what this in conjunction with the autism training that hopefully all the police officers and first responders have at this point, there's a connection now. Yeah. And they can say, "Oh yeah, I remember this now. Okay, this individual has a disability, whether it's autism or whatever the case may be. At least we have an understanding so we can handle the situation properly." So that's how these things connect. And that's why, you know, these pieces of this plan, they are, you know, I had the map out and they did connect, everything connected together.
It's such a complex issue. It touches so many different aspects of life and societal functioning and community and stuff that you almost have to, there's no other way around it. There's no silver bullet to anything. And plus the fact that every autistic individual is different from the other, so many different abilities, right? Mm-hmm. And you've established like a framework here that we just got to get towards. But still, I think the number one takeaway for me is I'm going to go back and watch this episode, is go back and sign up for that card. So thank you for setting that up.
It's at no cost. So
awesome.
Yeah, wow. They can be issued, and usually they get it to you within a few days. You can go out right on the website, on their OPWDD's website. It's actually it's the tab is they've got a lot of tabs. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, it was one of their latest editions. You'll find it.
Perfect. No, I'll link that in the description of this episode. But like that, like every time I hear so many things, like I thought, like I've like between my wife and I, we've covered everything. We try to get OPWD for my kid. We're trying to get the self-direction budget approved. You know, we've had AB therapy, and we feel like we're a step ahead. But I still talk to parents. I mean, I'm still learning about other things that are still out there, right? But I still talk to families and parents who are like, "Hey, our kid has diagnosis. Well, how old is he? He's 7 or 8. I'm like, "When did you know?" "When he was 3. So it's been 5 years. You've done nothing yet. Like, we don't know where to start. And I always tell them, please start with the Autism Society Greater Hudson.
And that's what I tell people, because people come into my office all the time, and it takes me right back to the feelings that we had when, you know, we had to try to understand what this was, and we just didn't know much about it. And we were just starting our lives together, and, you know, we had to figure out what to do. But that's what I tell people, just have a conversation with the Autism Society. It may work for you, it may not, but I have a feeling they're going to have some good information for you.
Exactly. And thank you for sending them our way. Joe, when we were prepping this episode, right, we talked a little about, we usually share like a fact of the day and something. And I mentioned self-direction budget, right, which is somewhere, you know, what it is essentially, it's like a budget we get yearly, once approved from the state, right? And I think somewhere in the order of anywhere between, I don't know, a few $1,000s and tens of $1,000s that the family can get. But did you have you were mentioning you were able to come up with a number that was like the cost of an individual per year, right? You want to mind sharing that as that's our fact of the day?
And this is nationwide, so for people in higher cost states like New York or California, it will be even more than this. But the annual cost for an autistic child, ages 0 to 5, is about $63,000 per year.
Okay.
And for those 6 to 17 is roughly $52,000 per year. So over the lifetime, though, because you got to remember, this extends past 18 to 22, 30. You know, autism you don't outgrow. This is part of who that individual is. In the United States, it's about $3.6 million lifetime economic
lifetime. But that annual number you said was right around, I think we got approved for like $45,000, which is right around that number, right, based on income and other things and needs. But then again, like for folks listening, like there's so much help out there. We just have to start asking the question and start speaking of the spectrum. But what other tips would you share with like families or things like, I know you mentioned a lot already, like a plethora of information, right, of what you've set up already, and right.
I have a list of things here. I'm looking at.
Pick one out and let's share one.
I do want to go back to the healthcare piece
Yep.
of that bill that the original bill we're talking about. The bill, what the bill does, the main point of the bill, the main function of the bill, besides these other components that we talked about, the main function was to establish what's called the New York State Autism Advisory Board. So this is a board that was established back then, more than 10 years ago now, that put a group of individuals that have experience with this, whether it's the medical field, whether it's any other component, education. They serve to advise the legislature on issues like the ones we're talking about. We have other issues we're not addressing, and having this discussion and coming up with a report each year to advise the Senate, the governor, and the Assembly on what the issues are, so that we can kind of have a roadmap. Not everybody deals with what we're talking about right now. Not everybody is affected, so it's our job to help people understand. What are the challenges? What are the challenges when it comes to education? What are the challenges when it comes to healthcare? One of the things, the healthcare piece, what we did come up with, and it was something we did in Schenectady at Ellis Hospital, is we established the sensory-friendly emergency room. So that was one of the first designations in the entire state that had officially be recognized as a sensory-friendly emergency room. Now you can imagine bringing someone with sensory issues through an emergency room. Talk about sensory overload. You look at the statistics. The chances of you actually getting to the problem itself without having all these barriers in place is very, very difficult to get to the reason that you're there. So to help people understand that and why there's a need for this, that's part of what the advisory board does. So that advisory board was just a key component, and they've continued their work. They send us reports, and from that we create new bills, or whether it's funding or whatever the case may be. We have a new program now at this. Employment's been a big topic of discussion.
I was going to ask about that.
It is a big topic of discussion. There's workforce shortage. How do we fill these positions? I know that companies have come to me. How do we partner up to hire people? I look at it as this term erasing the lines. Let's erase the lines that someone has a disability, someone doesn't. The truth is we all have abilities, and we all have things that maybe we're not so good at. But everybody has ability. So the companies are starting to realize that. So Hill & Marks in Amsterdam, they formed a partnership with NYSID not too long ago, New York State Industries for the Disabled. A portion of their employees are people with disabilities, people that may have been overlooked, but they are completely qualified to fill these positions. Why were they overlooked? It's just something that probably should never happen.
There's still so much work to be done there, right? We talked about neurodiversity in the workplace when we had Ludmila Praslova last season, and she wrote this book called The Canary Code. She herself is on the spectrum, but she did a lot of work and research around teaching and educating companies to start. She didn't like me using the word accommodate, but I can't find a better word, like accommodating neurodiverse people in the workplace, right? And that kind of brings me to one question I wanted to ask you was, like, as politics is complex and frustrating as it is, I'm sure, right?
Sure it is.
But when you're trying to advocate for, autism and people with special needs, what is the most frustrating wall you run into that makes you just eat your hat? It's like, why can't people just buy into this?
Yeah, I think, part of it is, look, the reason they came up with, the Autism Awareness Campaign way back, I forget what year it was a while ago. Autism awareness, that stigma that's there.
Yes.
Why can't you hire this person because they have a disability? Why can't it be based on qualification? Why is there a stigma there? But there is, and that's one of the challenging things to deal with. The other thing is I tell people, and if I take my daughter somewhere, I take my son too. I've always done that. I take them both. I treat them both the same. But for the longest time, I feel like people have been afraid to bring their kids out. But you have to understand that a lot of learning for everybody happens outside the classroom. Social interactions. Things that we do that are not in school, but it's still learning. And that is so important for the group of individuals we're talking about, to be able to experience the world as everyone else does, to be a part. When you talk to people with disabilities, and we just celebrated Direct Support Professionals Week that just ended at Liberty ARC.
Right, yeah.
The individuals will tell you you ask anybody that what's your number one concern, thing that you want. They want to be a part of what everyone else is being a part of. They want to go to the baseball games.
Yeah.
They want to go watch basketball games. They want to be able to go to the park and play with other kids. They want to go to the swimming pool. They want to be a part of what's happening in the world.
It's just that it might look different than it does for other people. It might be like for Mike, it'll be like 15 minutes versus 2 hours, but that's fine. We've just built around it, right? Like that's all we got to do is just give them that little space and like you said, the sensory area at the emergency or what we're starting to see in different places.
We did a program with Siena Basketball. We do it every year.
Yep.
Once a year, they have the, I don't know if you've attended or not.
I've always wanted to. It's at the MVP Arena,
Oh,
right?
we partner with you guys to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of a strange feeling when you walk in, you know, almost like a basketball game's not even going on because it's dark. Yeah. There's no horns. All you hear is the squeaking of the sneakers on the hardwood. But what does that do? Now that opens it up to families that couldn't attend, could never go as a family to go watch a game. And, you know, the first time we did it, some people were in tears to be able to go and be together as a family and address all the sensory issues and be able to be part of something everyone else has been able to do. And that's really the goal here. Yeah. Is just erase those lines. And even, you know, when you think about sensory friendly, when you think about making accommodations, it's a win-win. It's a win for the organization because now more people can attend, whether it's a business or whatever it is. Yeah. More people can attend. You know, it's a group of people that couldn't be a part of it. Now they can be a part of it. I think that's a win for everybody.
And like it was like a running theme last season. We said like if you make something better for people that are artistic, you make it better for everybody. Like the example I'd like to give is like Dubai Airport, right? It's a sensory friendly airport. There's no announcements, nothing. It's quiet. Who doesn't want to land into an airport like that? Even if you are, you know, like I don't want to land into JFK with like trains flying everywhere, people yelling everywhere. It's a nice quiet airport. You just walk through. Who doesn't want that? It makes it better for everybody.
And what Angelo was talking about with Ellis Hospital, the sensory friendly emergency department. I mean, you've got individuals coming on in who are scared because they're injured or, you know, have something going on. And so they're being overloaded sensorially. And it's not people on the spectrum. So this focusing on doing what's good for our community is actually helping the greater community. And this is the most critical thing that we can be doing because the only way that we're going to be getting any better as a society is if we keep speaking of the spectrum.
Speaking of the spectrum. Exactly. Beautiful wrap up, Joe. Thank you so much, Assemblyman Santabarbara, for giving us time today. I feel like I want to have you back and just keep picking your brain more, learning more.
I'm happy to come back.
Probably by this time next year, you would run even more. Like, would it be like a 10-step plan or something? It'll multiply. So thank you.
I'm happy to come back anytime. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the mug.
Let's flash the mug in the camera
really appreciate it. Yes, it'll be on my desk. So
you too can have this mug. Just have to make a significant donation at our website, asghr.org/podcast. And then email us at podcast@asghr.org to let us know you did. And, you know, Joe and I will deliver it to you with a hot cup of coffee inside it if you're local. So thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next episode. Take care.